Hello everybody, welcome to another City Skylines video from the Aurelia city. Today I'd like to do something special, something I planned for a really long time, but I couldn't build it just yet because we had to do some preparations. But now that we finished this hill area with all the lower density residential buildings and more importantly the tram corridor, we can now go ahead and do the project that I wanted to do. So it's going to be a direct continuation of this place towards the river. We will build a bridge, but not just any old bridge, but a bridge with residential buildings on top of it. Yes, you heard right. It will also have a regular road on it, a tram tracks, of course, and also a bicycle plus pedestrian path. So let's go build it already and you will see. The idea for this project actually came from real life because we had an election for the mayor of the city where I live in, and one of the candidates actually posted a picture on Facebook where they showed like an architectural concept of one of the bridges in the city to be completely rebuilt so that it has buildings on top of it, like residential buildings. And the plan was that the bridge is going to be super expensive, but it's going to be paid for by selling the apartments on the bridge, in the buildings on the bridge. Obviously it was kind of, joked about and memed about because it's kind of, far-fetched and quite ridiculous to be built in real life, especially in a city like this where space is not that really that big of an issue. But I don't know, maybe some kind of a bridge with buildings on top of it, or any kind of like road infrastructure with residential buildings incorporated into it or around it somehow might probably be a bit more reasonable in cities like, I don't know, Tokyo or something like that. Just cities where space is obviously weighted in gold. But in Aurelia, that's obviously a perfect project in here because it's a futuristic looking project, I guess, futuristic looking idea that is definitely going to fit this place nicely. And immediately when I saw the picture of the real life concept, I immediately thought, yes, that's something that I have to build in Aurelia, right? So that's exactly what I planned for, and I already knew that it was going to be in this place in particular because it might make sense that the bridge will be slightly elevated even above the shores of the river banks, I guess, so that there's going to be maybe some buildings underneath the sides of the bridge as well, so that the bridge will have to probably go from some elevated area. And obviously we are on the hill, or we have been building stuff on the hill, and it kind of makes sense so that the bridge is going to continue from this hill. It also makes quite a lot of sense that there's going to be a tram going on the bridge. There was actually a plan for a tram tracks on the real life concept as well. So I immediately thought that this place is going to be quite perfect for it. And I already started preparing for this when I started building the eye in the park. The tram tracks from the park are kind of turning towards the river, and that's exactly what I wanted to have there, to have the tram tracks go pretty much perpendicular towards the river so that we could have it on the bridge. So that's kind of what we achieved in the previous episode with the corridor, and straight from the corridor we are continuing towards the bridge. Now let's talk a bit about what we have already in here. So I'm not sure if I showed it in the video or not, but I built a train station on that main train tracks that are heading towards the industrial zone. There is going to be a stop, obviously, already for the trains that are going into the industrial zone, and this transport hub is actually going to be quite busy. There are also another tram tracks apart from those going to the top. There are also tram tracks going parallel to the train station. I only built it in just a couple of segments down there. You can see it underneath the bridge right now. And it's going to be the oldest tram line, actually, that's going to go parallel to the river. And it's just going to make a slight detour towards the station over here. And towards the end of this episode, I am actually going to put that line in there already. So we are creating quite a busy transportation hub already. And as always, there might be some buses in the future as well, going into some different areas. Now, the start of this bridge over here, it's like I said, the bridge is going to go already from the hill area. We have built that somewhat more important road right around the hill area where the tram tracks are going to go to or cross that street. And from that road, the bridge is pretty much starting. So it goes right over the highway, which we can see right now down here. And then it continues, just straight continues over the water. So there is some space between the water and the hill underneath the bridge where we just need to build some kind of buildings and all that. As you can see over here, I'm already using a lot of the procedural objects grass to kind of cover the highway over here and create some sort of a nice, like a diverging shape on the side of this bridge, so that I can fill it with grass and kind of make it into some sort of a park. Well, not really a park, but just like a green area with all kinds of trees and, you know, bushes and all that. Now, right now, it doesn't really look like it's going to stand out that much, but I'm going to talk about that, I guess, in just a minute. But right now I'm just trying to set up the basic shape of all this, because obviously it's not all that easy to work on these levels, and obviously to create all kinds of supports to make it at least somewhat realistic, and create all of these surfaces and all that. So there's going to be a lot of infrastructure underneath this bridge. It kind of made sense to start doing things underneath and then just work my way to the top, right? But I obviously wanted to have the bridge as the main project and everything else kind of around it so it fits. So I started building the bridge, and then I had to just go underneath it and finish all these things, which was kind of a bit of a problem. You could have seen me actually put some procedural objects into groups so that I can hide them and then make them visible again after I'm done doing whatever I need to do underneath this. Now, down here, I'm actually starting to do what I was already kind of almost talking about. So the surface on the bridge, on the diverging side of the bridge, on the start of the bridge, is green, right? It's completely green. But if you were to look at it right now at this stage of the building, it was not really standing out that much. So I really decided to just put some kind of grayish buildings, blocks all around the place down underneath it in here, so that it really stands out. So the place underneath it is going to be gray, and on top of it, it's going to be just green and kind of nice, to kind of symbolize the fact that the bridge and the buildings on the bridge, which I'm building right now, are going to be a bit more luxurious or something like that, you know? Now, the buildings for the bridge, I chose these waves. They're actually called Wave. I think this building is called the Wave. I'm using it as procedural object for obvious reasons, because if I just put it as the normal building, it will obviously try to put the terrain up from the bottom of the river, and that's something that I can't really afford. This way, the buildings are just decorations, but later I am going to put the blank residential buildings that I created some time ago. Now, I just wanted to have one style of buildings on the bridge. I wanted to put more kinds of buildings in here, similar kinds of buildings, but later I just made it much simpler, using just the wave building, and then keeping it that way, creating the tram tracks on one side and the buildings putting towards that bicycle pedestrian road. Now, by the way, you could have seen me do that in the previous video, or maybe I showed that in the cinematics only, but I also created like a dead end bicycle road, this wide bicycle road going down that hill. It's probably going to go somewhere to the downtown on that side, and obviously it's going to cross the bridge, and it's going to be a fairly long, like a bicycle path all across the water. So that's obviously not really going anywhere right now, because we don't have anything on the other side of the river, just like the roads are not really going anywhere there as well. But later on, it might actually be quite a busy bicycle path, because it's probably going to be the only one going across the river, at least in this area. Now, building the basic shape of the bridge was it was kind of clear how it needs to be, that I need to create some kind of really wide pillars like these, but obviously getting them was not exactly all that easy. So I had to pick like a normal bridge for railroads, I think, from the workshop, of course, and then I had to just stretch it with procedural objects, well, kind of scale it up, and then somewhat scale it down only on one axis, which is obviously not possible with the scale function, so I just had to move around the nodes. You could have seen me do that right there. And the structure, the horizontal structure of the bridge was kind of thin, So I had to make it look more massive by just adding those concrete walls on the sides. And it definitely does look a bit more realistic. If something like that was built in real life, then from the engineering point of view, it probably wouldn't be all that terrible to have it like this. Now, the sides of the bridge are going to be kind of interesting in terms of the traffic, public transport, because we definitely want to have some sort of public transport going all around this place. And like I said before, this is going to be this part of the bridge, the one that's finished, because the other side of the bridge is not finished. We don't have anything there right now. But this part is going to be some sort of a transportation hub between 2 tram lines and 1 train station. Now, on the top there, I had to create some kind of a wider road for the trams because there's going to be a high volumes of people, and it's just going to look better, so the platforms are slightly wider. Obviously, I had to use procedural objects and all that. And for this particular project, I had to also download the mod for having the tram stops on elevated segments because it's kind of important. I really wanted to have a tram stop in the middle of the bridge, in the middle of the river, so that people from the bridge can obviously enjoy the tram line as well. Now, that's almost done with the bridge, with the side of the bridge. And now I really wanted to do what I was talking about. So create some kind of grayish areas down here. I'm not necessarily trying to make like a really bad side of town in here or something like that. Not really. It's just not going to have a lot of green, that's all. But it's going to have some office buildings and further away from the train station, even some residential buildings as well. I downloaded a lot of new buildings for this particular area because I really wanted to have something low rise. The idea is that this place underneath the bridge is only going to have buildings that are not going to be higher than the bridge itself. Preferably not the horizontal structure of the bridge, but if I'm going to find like a super nice building, then it can be higher than that, but definitely not higher than the tops of the buildings of the waves, right? Because the bridge kind of needs to stand out in terms of height. It's kind of important to have it like that because I don't know, it just feels right. So down here, I'm trying to pick only low-rise buildings, just maybe like I don't know, 7-8 floors maximum or something like that. And I do have a lot of those buildings, but for the Aurelia series, I was mostly downloading like high-rise buildings. So maybe some buildings in here are going to be even vanilla buildings because I don't really have problems with vanilla buildings, just like many other people do. But especially these low-density commercial buildings are quite fine. The vanilla buildings are quite fine. So I'm using them quite a lot because they're very nice for these particular purposes. Now I'm also using, you can see me do that in here. I'm also doing these the painter mod. I'm also using the painter mod because some of these buildings are very bright, and basically I'm just toning it down. I did it with that office building, the brick office building, and also with that elementary school because those buildings were a bit too bright, and I wanted to kind of match the saturation levels, let's say, for the buildings that are down here. Because again, the wave buildings on top of the bridge are very bright and obviously very green around it, right? But down here, I kind of want to have exactly the same opposite. I want to have slightly grayish, more grayish buildings with more grayish areas. So I'm kind of keeping in mind that I don't really want to detail this place down here too much, or pretty much at all, and definitely not with any kinds of greenery, any kinds of planters or something like that. But like I said, it's not really intended to be like a bad side of town in here underneath the bridge. It's just going to be like a slightly more normal looking area that you might probably find in any kind of cities all around the planet, right? So it's just going to be a lot of these blocks. It was kind of surprising to me that it took me not really a long time to build these. So this is something I definitely want to continue more around the shores of the river in here. Definitely going to continue with this style more towards the downtown from here. That's kind of something that I want to do in the next episodes as well. Maybe with slightly increasing the heights of the buildings as well. But this is actually not looking that bad. especially if you have some kind of a contrast to these kinds of places, just like I have the bridge right now, because the bridge is kind of green on the sides. It has a lot of green areas on top of it, so it definitely offsets this gray area down here, creates a very, very nice contrast. I also wanted to include some sort of a industrial-ish areas down here, right next to the highway, and I decided to just do like a warehouse, like a storage area. So I put a lot of these warehouses all around this place. I'm not actually sure if these are like a proper industrial buildings, or maybe I just converted them into offices or something. I think they are like a really, really low density, low capacity industrial buildings. So we will probably see some traffic go to this area, but that should not really be that big of a deal. And I'm pretty sure that some of these office buildings, some of these warehouse buildings are office buildings anyway. Now, finishing these blocks, and it's pretty much done, because I'm just filling these blocks up with some random buildings, just to make sure that it fits obviously with the tracks, nothing is clipping through it, and it nicely fits into the grid, into the roads. And obviously it wouldn't be complete if I didn't put any trees on top of here. So I'm using the same trees that I did with the hill, even with some slight variations, some bushes and some more colorful trees on top here. I didn't really want to include any of those flower beds or something like that, but maybe I'm going to revisit that when we are going to do the other side of the bridge. But that's probably going to happen in a really, really distant future, because there's absolutely nothing on the other side of the river right now. Also, there might be some kind of a bug in the cinematics. The trees sometimes disappear when you are looking at them, because they are built over water, and sometimes they will disappear in the cinematics, so sorry about that. But anyway, it's almost done. Enjoy the cinematics, guys. I hope you liked this build today, and I'm going to see you in the next episode next week. So I hope you liked it. If you did, then definitely subscribe to the channel, leave a like, comment, and share this video with your friends, and take care and goodbye.